God is giving you. Enjoy it where you are, and enjoy what you're doing. One of the ways that Christianity has influenced Western civilization, and that's going to be a Bible class that I teach starting first Sunday of Chin. Bible class is going to be on how the Bible has influenced Western civilization. One of the ways is in reference to time. Did you know that the mechanical clock, and we've got the modern version of the mechanical clock here on our wrist, the mechanical clock was designed by Catholic monks. The mathematical concept for a mechanical clock goes all the way back to an Indian mathematician back in the year 1150 AD. But Indians and their Hindu religion didn't see any purpose for a clock. It was not designed until the 1200s by a Catholic bishop. And here's how it happened. And David Landis, in a book called The Revolution in Time, tells the story. You see, monks got together as a community and they prayed 7 times a day. Now, at that time, early at that time, they used the sundial, of course, to tell time. But because the monks got together so frequently, sometimes, in fact, most of the time before the day started and after the day ended, before the sun came up, before the sun went down, they needed to have some way of telling time without the sundial. And so this Catholic bishop used these formulations that were originally developed by this Indian mathematician, and he developed the mechanical clock, so that the monks could know how much time to devote to their secular work, and then how much time they could devote to prayer, and at what time all the monks needed to get together in order to have their community prayers. Now, how has our lives been affected by the use of the mechanical clock and the things that we can do that we could not do without it? You see, the Hindus believe that time is eternal and that it is actually an evil god. The Buddhists have the concept of time that it is cyclical. That's the idea of reincarnation. And so Buddhists and Hindu monks, they get together and they pray and they meditate, trying to distance themselves from the world. That's their escape from the world, is through meditation. But Christians came along and said, no, we can't escape from time, but we can control our use of time. And so Christians developed the mechanical clock. Christians value time differently. Let's look at some other passages here in Ecclesiastes. Turn back to Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 24 through 26. Thinking about using our time in a quality way. Ecclesiastes 2, 24 through 26. There is nothing better for a man than to eat and drink and tell himself that his labor is good. This also I have seen, that it is from the hand of God. For who can eat and who can have enjoyment without him? For to a person who is good in his sight, he has given wisdom and knowledge and joy. While to the sinner he has given the task of gathering and collecting, so that he may give the one who is good in God's sight. This too is vanity and striving after the wind. So Solomon says, use your time, enjoy your time. God has given you wisdom and knowledge and joy in this life. He uses wisely. Look at what he says over in chapter 3, verses 12 through 14. I know that there's nothing better for them than to rejoice and to do good in one's lifetime. Moreover, that every man who eats and drinks sees good in all his labor. Do we not need to be able to look back on our work week and say, wow, I got something accomplished? You know, the Bible has a lot to say about self-confidence and a healthy self-image. So here Solomon says, you need to be able to look back at your week and say, yeah, I did something profitable. Every man who eats and drinks sees good in all his labor. Notice verse 13, it is a gift of God. Life and time is a gift from God. I know that everything God does will remain forever. There's nothing to add to it. There's nothing to take from it. For God has so worked that men should fear Him. So here Solomon says, if you really want to spend your time wisely, use your time in a godly way. The things that involve God are the things that have the most eternal repercussions. Now, for those of us who are parents, that clearly goes back to how we raise our children. The things that involve God are the things that have the most eternal repercussions in it, the most significant impact in the lives of others. Developing people and developing relationships, clearly, is one of the most important ways we can spend our time. Now look over chapter 9. Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 7 through 9. And ladies, you're going to like verse 9. Ecclesiastes 9, verse 9. Let's begin reading verse 7, though. Solomon says, Go then, eat your bread in happiness, and drink your wine with a cheerful heart, for God has already approved your works. And let your clothes be always white, or white all the time, and let not oil be lacking on your head. In other words, enjoy life. Don't be cynical, don't be grouchy, don't be negative. Enjoy life. Enjoy what God has given you. Now verse 9. Enjoy life with the woman whom you love all the days of your fleeting life. See, God says, me and you enjoy your life with your wife. Enjoy life. For there is reward in life, and in your toil in which you have labored under the sun. Spending quality time is spending time with your family, spending time with your wife, with your husband, with your children. Clearly, that's not all we can do. But Solomon says, do that. Spend quality time with your family. Why? Because the days are fleeting. Can you imagine Methuselah at 969 years old looking back at his life and saying, wow, that time passed by fast? I imagine he probably did. There's nothing new under the sun, Solomon says, chapter 1, verse 9. So it doesn't matter how long you live. You're always going to look back and say, time passed by fast. The question is, how do we use it? Well, despite the fact that Solomon says, enjoy life, he also teaches that we will give an account to God about how we use our time. We can't do anything and everything with our time. It does have to be approved by God. Time on this earth is the sphere in which God has given us for us to show Him that we want to spend eternity with Him. This time is our earthly brain. And so because of that, that makes this life that we live, 75, 85, 95 years, whatever it might be, that makes it very significant in the sense that we show God how we use our time, that we love Him and we want to spend eternity with Him. There's a sundial in Harvard Yard on which is inscribed the words, on this minute hangs eternity. And because of that, it makes every action, every deed, every thought, every word very significant when it comes to our eternal destination. So look at some of these passages from Solomon again in Ecclesiastes. Look back at chapter 3 and verse 17. Solomon says, I said to myself, as I looked around at life, I said to myself, God will judge both the righteous man and the wicked man. For a time, for every matter, for every deed is there. God's going to judge. So even though Solomon says, enjoy life, he's also telling us there are right things to do and there are wicked things to do. In fact, the word right or righteous is used a dozen times through his book, and the word wickedness is used about the same amount of times. So there are some things that we don't need to do. Look over at chapter 5 and verse 7, where Solomon says, in many dreams and in many words there is emptiness. Rather, he says, fear God. So fear God, even as you enjoy life. Don't allow Satan to suck you into his self-centered ways of how you enjoy life. Look over chapter 8, verses 12 and 13. Although a life? Yes. There are times when the wicked seem to get away with it. But Solomon says, still I know that it will be well for those who fear God and who fear Him openly, but it will not be well for the evil man, and he will not lengthen his days like a shadow because he does not fear God. So there are those who get away with murder, we say, in this life. But they won't get away with it the next. God takes note, and God won't forget. And so how do we need to use our time here on this earth? We need to use it wisely. Look over at chapter 12, and we'll conclude by reading a few verses here from chapter 12. As we've already said, this whole world and time, the big cosmic clock one day is going to be destroyed. Time is going to come to an end. We all know that our own lives are going to come to an end at some point. And when we breathe that last breath, our fate is sealed. Notice what Solomon says in chapter 12, verse 7. The dust will return to the earth as it was, and the Spirit will return to God who gave it. So we're all going to stand before God one day. And we'll have to explain to God how we used our time here on this earth. And so notice how Solomon concludes his book in chapter 12, verses 13 and 14. The conclusion, Solomon says, when all is seen and heard, fear God and keep His commandments. For this is, the Hebrew literally says, this is the whole of man. That is what humanity is all about. That is why God created humanity. That is our purpose. That's who we are created to be. God-fearers and His commandment keepers. That's who we are. That is the whole of man. That's what distinguishes us from the animal. And Solomon tells us why in verse 14. For God will bring into judgment everything that is hidden, whether it is good or evil. And so we will give account to God one day for how we use our time. Well, let me conclude by offering some 6 or 7 suggestions on how we can use our time more wisely. You may already know all these things, and you may not. Maybe I can help. First of all, get a calendar and use it. I had a calendar for a long time. And you know what I do with my calendar? I'll put in it what I did after the fact. Oh, here's what I did last Tuesday. I'll get a calendar. Keep it handy where you see it all the time. If you have something that you have to do next Friday and it has to have some work done previously to it, then put it on your calendar, 3 or 4 days in advance. Start working on this project. Why? Because point number 2 is don't procrastinate. Can't stand procrastination. Procrastination is the thief of time. Procrastination is the thief of quality. You know why? Because when you put off, except those few people who can get by. I had a friend in college, graduate school, who could put off his 25, 30-page paper until the night before it was due, stay up all night long, write that paper, get a better grade on than I did. Hated me for it. But procrastination is usually the thief of quality. Why? Because you put off, then all of a sudden you got to get it done, so you rush, and you don't have time to put quality thinking time into it. So don't procrastinate. Get it done early. Use your calendar. Break tasks into small, bite-sized pieces. Do you know how to learn a foreign language? One word at a time. You learn a foreign language one grammar rule at a time. Now, I'm not the kind of person that was born with the ability to learn foreign languages. That's not an inborn gift that I